Hi guys, this is Kalara Hudson of While They Play Designs, and in today's video I'm going to be demonstrating how to apply fringe to a knitted piece. So if you take a look here, I just have a piece of knitting and I've created these purl rows or garter stitch rows on my piece, and I'll be attaching my fringe to this top purl ridge right here. And I'm just going to show you how to do that. For this particular piece of knitting, I want my fringe to be about 9 inches long. So there are two different ways you can do this. You can take a ruler or a yardstick, and I just have one here, and you can go ahead and take your yarn that you're going to be making your fringe out of, and you can measure it to 9 inches. So that's about there. And then, once you know that you have the appropriate length, you can go ahead and just use that as a gauge to cut out all the pieces of fringe that you need to that exact same size, just like so. Or there's a quicker way to do this that I'll show you. And to do this, I just simply took a piece of cardboard. And I have a pretty wide piece here. It's about 14 inches wide. I just took this off one of the flaps of a cardboard box. And you want one that's fairly sturdy and thick. And I just cut it to half of that 9 inches wide, so 4.5 inches wide, since I'm going to be wrapping my yarn around this piece of cardboard. So, to do that, just take your yarn that you want to use as fringe. Let's see, let's start up here. You'll just hold that in place, and then you'll simply wrap. And I wouldn't pull too tight, especially if you have a yarn that's pretty springy and is twisted pretty tight. You don't want to give too much, you don't want to pull too tight on the yarn as you're making this. But you would just do this all the way down the length of the piece of cardboard, and you just want to cinch these up as you're going. Get them close together, but try not to overlap your yarn too much, because you want these to be pretty close to that measurement that you have. So all your fringe will be pretty much the same length. So I'll go ahead and do this across the entire piece of cardboard, and then I'll show you what we'll do next. And you can, at the beginning when you get started, this first loop is going to want to unwind, so you can go ahead and tape that down or just tuck it like so it doesn't go anywhere. Okay, so I've almost reached the end of this piece of cardboard with all of my wraps. Okay, and I started my first piece. There it is. Started my first piece on this side. So I'm going to go ahead and finish my last piece on the reverse side. And then I'll just give that a trim. Okay, now, instead of using small, short scissors like this, I'm going to go ahead and get out some nice, long, tapered sewing scissors that are nice and sharp. And the reason for that is if we use the short ones to cut this fringe, actually we're going to be cutting here at the top. If we use the short ones, it's going to take a little bit longer, as you can see, to get all the way across that board. So I'm just going to use these long ones. And we're going to go ahead. I'm going to start here, and you'll simply begin cutting. Just like so, all the way down the length of this cardboard. And if you find that it starts to get a little difficult through the middle here, you can stop and rotate and go from the other direction. And I think we caught all of them. Looks like it. Okay, so can see we have all of our finished fringe done. And we have multiple pieces here. This is just easier than doing it the first way that I showed you. But when you have your fringe pieces ready, I'll show you how we're going to apply that to our knitting. Okay, so I like to use a crochet hook that's pretty comparable to the size of needle that you used for your piece of knitting, or slightly smaller, but you want it to be big enough to hook around the weight of yarn that you're using. So just try to stick to a similar size for your hook. So the first thing we'll do is fold our piece of fringe in half so our two ends meet, and I'm just going to pinch the ends. And now when you're applying your fringe to a purl row, instead of inserting it to the actual bottom of that purl stitch, what you'll want to do is insert it to the stitch or strand that goes between the purls. So that would be this little smiley face. So you can see here's our next purl right here. It looks like a rainbow shape. And we want the strand that goes between that purl next. This will just allow your fringe to lay completely flat instead of wanting to flip up on you, which is what it'll do if you go into the actual purl stitch. So I've located the first smiley face or strand, and I'm going to go in with my crochet hook from the bottom up, and then I will hook the very middle of that strand of yarn and pull it through to the bottom. And then I'll just insert my fingers here through that loop, grab where I've pinched, and then pull down. And then we'll form our little knot here. So there's the first piece of fringe attached. And then we'll go over to the next little smiley face shape. If you want, you can feel free to skip like every other, as long as you have an odd number of purl ridges. You can do that. But I'm just going to go into every single bump here. So again, I'm going into the smiley face, and I'm going to fold my piece of fringe in half, pinch it at the ends, then hook it in the middle of the strand, pull through, and then put my fingers through and pull where I've pinched, and then pull down into a knot. So that's how you do the applied fringe. As you can see, that lays nice and flat. It doesn't want to flip up on us. And you'll just repeat this across the row for however you want to work your fringe. And you can also, if you like, if you have a thinner yarn especially, you can take 2 pieces of your fringe. That just gives you a little thicker fringe to work with across, but just make sure that you follow whatever your pattern tells you to do. So that's how we work an applied fringe on a knitted piece. I hope this technique in this video helps you guys out. Thanks so much for watching.